now. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Chris. Thanks, man. And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Okay, I've got it for you. What we have here is the secret decoder ring. It's like the Rosetta Stone that will let you decrypt behavior in Washington as it pertains to President Obama. Honestly, if I could turn this into some sort of clip and save laminated card that everybody could keep in their wallet, I would love to be able to do that. In the absence, however, of being able to transcend the space-time continuum that way, I will instead show it to you this way. This makes it all make sense. All right. March 2nd of this year on the Charlie Rose Show on PBS. The topic of discussion that day on Charlie Rose was what President Obama should do about Russia. Russia was being super belligerent toward Ukraine. They were going to annex part of Ukraine and turn it into Russia. So the topic of discussion that day, what should President Obama do about Russia behaving so badly? The guest on Charlie Rose that day was John McCain. Senator McCain, what is your advice for what President Obama should do to Russia?
I think first I would try the Magnitsky, which, as you know, targets individuals and their bank accounts and their ability to travel and all that. I would try that first. Then, obviously, I would look at other areas. You know, throw them out of the G8. Of course, it should be the G7.
Okay, so this is step one. Throw Russia out of the G8, sanction some Russians. This is step one. John McCain gives advice about what President Obama should do. That's step one. Step two, President Obama, in fact, does that. He, in fact, sanctioned some Russians, just like John McCain said he should, and he also threw Russia out of the G8. He got the G8 together, lobbied all the other countries in it, and in fact, they kicked Russia out of the G8, and the G8 does become the G7, which is exactly what John McCain said President Obama should do. So step one, John McCain says President Obama should do this. Step two, President Obama does this. Now here's step three.
So now it's the G7, right?
Well, yeah, G7, I'm sure that has got reduced Vladimir to tears, that he's not going to be able to be in the G8. Take over part of a country and you don't get to go to the next meeting in some wonderful European capital.
See? This is the Rosetta Stone. This is the magic decoder ring that tells you how Washington works right now. Say that President Obama should do something, and then pray that he doesn't actually do it, because if he does actually do it, you're then going to have to come out against the thing that you have been recommending all along. It's a terrible idea. John McCain does this all the time. On all sorts of issues. But on the Russia thing, it was so perfect because it was so specific. Throw him out of the G8. Oh, you threw him out of the G8? Well, why'd you have to go and throw him out of the G8 for? That's not going to do anything. It's amazing. John McCain, I would have to make you up if he didn't exist. But now you're going to need that magic decoder ring to understand the otherwise inexplicable behavior in Washington on a different subject today. You may have seen today the release of this video, which purports to show and appears to show the moment at which U.S. Army Sergeant, prisoner of war Bo Bergdahl was handed over from his Taliban captors to U.S. Special Forces. As you can see, he does not look well. In the video, he is able to walk, although apparently with some difficulty, he gets some assistance at one point. You can see that the handover was pretty tightly choreographed. It happens very quickly, at least according to what we can see. That said, this video was filmed by and edited by and produced for the web by the Taliban to suit Taliban purposes. So take it with a big theocratic grain of salt, because they have edited this video and framed it the way they did for their own purposes. So we're only seeing what they want us to see. That said, the Wall Street Journal today reports that another video, also shot by the Taliban, may have been what drove the U.S. military and the U.S. government to make this happen, to push for Sergeant Bergdahl's release now, and to put some urgency behind the effort of getting him out of there. According to the Wall Street Journal today, the U.S. intelligence community reportedly produced some sort of analysis of what Bo Bergdahl looked like in the videotapes they were getting of him from the Taliban. What happened progressively to this American prisoner of war over the course of the consecutive videos that the Taliban released of him. Sergeant Bergdahl was first taken captive in the summer of 2009. The first video that the Taliban released of him showing him in captivity, that was later that year, later in 2009. They released further videos of him in 2010 and in 2011. According to the Wall Street Journal, the intelligence community analyzed those videos, analyzed what Sergeant Bergdahl looked like in those videos, his apparent health, his apparent physical condition, to the extent that they could tell his apparent mental condition. And they reportedly concluded that between the last video that was released of him by the Taliban in 2011 and the most recent video, which the Pentagon obtained, but which was never released publicly, this past December 2013. Between 2011 and late 2013, the intelligence community apparently determined in this analysis that Bo Bergdahl's condition was deteriorating rapidly. According to the Wall Street Journal, officials who have seen the video described Sergeant Bergdahl's condition in that latest video as alarming. Seeing him like that, we had to go get him. Well, now again, that latest video, the one from December, the one that reportedly so upset and shocked U.S. officials that it caused them to change their game plan, change their time frame, make new attempts to negotiate his release. That video from December 2013 has never been shown to the public. It is reportedly in the Pentagon's hands. But even though nobody before tonight outside the Pentagon had ever seen it, the existence of the video was reported earlier this year. It was described in reporting, and it was reported as the reason the government was redoubling its earlier efforts to arrange some sort of prisoner swap with the Taliban to try to get Sergeant Bergdahl back. So this reporting was back in February. This is interesting.
Just weeks ago, the U.S. military obtained a new video. It's never been publicly released. It's raised concerns, though, about Bergdahl's health. The Taliban has long demanded the release of 5 Taliban prisoners from Guantanamo in exchange for his release. Well, today, a U.S. official confirmed that new discussions led by diplomats and the Pentagon are underway. Would you oppose the idea of some form of negotiations or prisoner exchange? I know back in 2012, you called the idea of even negotiating with the Taliban bizarre, highly questionable.
Well, at that time, the proposal was that they would release Taliban, some of them really hardcore, particularly 5 really hardcore Taliban leaders, as a confidence-building measure. Now this idea is for an exchange of prisoners for our American fighting man. I would be inclined to support such a thing, depending on a lot of the details.
So if there was the possibility of some sort of exchange, that's something you would support?
I would support, obviously I'd have to know the details, but I would support ways of bringing him home, and if exchange was one of them, I think that would be something I think we should seriously consider.
So get out your secret decoder ring again, because, right, this is step 1 for John McCain. An exchange of prisoners for our American fighting man. I would be inclined to support that. That is step 1. Step 2 is President Obama does that. The same deal that had been on the table and had been discussed with Congress for months, if not years. Exactly what John McCain said he would be inclined to support: an exchange of prisoners for our American fighting man, specifically an exchange of prisoners with the Taliban for our American fighting man. So step 2 is President Obama does exactly what John McCain said he would be inclined to support. And then what's step 3? Well, now, of course, John McCain has to be against his own idea.
This decision to bring Sergeant Bergdahl home, and we applaud that he is home, is ill-founded. It is a mistake, and it is putting the lives of American servicemen and women at risk, and that, to me, is unacceptable to the American people.
Senator McCain did not think that that very same exchange of prisoners would be unacceptable to the American people when he himself suggested it in February. But once President Obama actually did it and got Bo Bergdahl home that way, well, then the senator had to complete step 3 of his magic decoder ring process. He had to come out against his own idea as a terrible and outrageous and dangerous idea because President Obama actually did it. It is amazing. And Senator McCain does this on lots of issues. Look for this pattern in other things from John McCain, because he does it over and over again. But right now, it's not just John McCain. You can see all sorts of conservative politicians getting sort of confused by, getting spun around by, getting caught out by the upside-down gonzo Washington politics on this story of the return of America's Afghan war POW. And you can see these Republican politicians all over the country having to adjust to the fact that this isn't a satire. This isn't some cruel joke. They really are, as conservative politicians, expected now to be against an American POW and against the deal that brought him home. You can see them adjust from their natural reaction of being happy that we got our POW home to this conservative imperative now that they are supposed to treat that as bad news. That uncomfortable adjustment as they move from a normal reaction to what they're told is supposed to be their political reaction. Unfortunately, for some of them, that adjustment has been happening in public. And everything's searchable now. Mashable.com rounded up some of the most obvious difficult adjustments today by conservative politicians. Republican Congressman Lee Terry of Nebraska put out a statement on Saturday, the day it was announced that Bo Bergdahl was coming home. Look, this is nice. A grateful nation welcomes the news of the return of Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. There's nothing more solemn than the pledge to never leave one of their own behind on the battlefield. Congressman called Sergeant Bergdahl a national hero. But then, apparently, the memo went out that Sergeant Bergdahl is supposed to be attacked and not praised by politicians, and him coming home is supposed to be a scandal and not a cause for celebration. And so now, whatever is sacred or not, when you go to the page on Congressman Terry's website that used to have that statement and now just said, sorry, but there is no document by that reference here. The statement has been deleted. Republican Congressman Mark Amaday of Nevada tweeted on Saturday, look, best news I've heard in a long time! Exclamation point, hashtag stand with Bo. Then that tweet got deleted the next morning. Jody Ernst, the newly minted Republican Senate candidate from the state of Iowa, she said by Twitter, thoughts and prayers go out to Sergeant Bergdahl and his family. And then she deleted that. No more thoughts and prayers going out to Sergeant Bergdahl and his family. Did I say that? I didn't mean that. I'm neither thinking of you nor praying for you. Senator Thad Cochran, welcome home, Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. A grateful America thanks you for your service for 3 days. And then Senator Thad Cochran deletes that sentiment. America apparently no longer grateful for your service. Conservative Democratic Congressman Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts, Democrat. Same deal. Great to hear that Bo Bergdahl has been released from captivity. Warmest regards to his family with gratitude for his and their service and sacrifice. But then, as of this morning, deleted. No more warm regards for you. Warm regards hereby rescinded. Congressman Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts no longer wants anybody to know that he once thought it was good news that an American prisoner of war had been freed, and he wants to scrub the record of any evidence that he ever thanked this service member and his family for both their service and their sacrifice. He's hoping that one goes down the memory hole. Tonight, the U.S. Special Envoy for Afghanistan and Pakistan and other White House officials walked over to Capitol Hill and did a rare briefing for the full United States Senate on the administration's actions to end Sergeant Bergdahl's captivity in Afghanistan and get him home. That briefing was closed to the public. No cameras were allowed inside. But we are told that one of the things that senators were allowed to see at that briefing that nobody had seen before outside the Pentagon and the intelligence community, what we're told is that senators were able to see that proof of life video from December, which the U.S. government somehow obtained from the Taliban in December. And it's the one that reportedly showed such a deterioration in Sergeant Bergdahl's condition that it changed certain officials' minds about what it was worth to try to get Bo Bergdahl out. The director of national intelligence, for example, James Clapper, reportedly is one of those senior officials who previously did not want to do the Taliban prisoner swap for Bo Bergdahl until he saw that video. And then after that video and the plan was laid out, then he changed his mind. Whatever's on that tape from December, it hasn't been shown publicly. It may never be shown publicly. But apparently, all of the senators of the United States Senate got to see it tonight. At that briefing tonight, and joining us now is Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator Murphy, thank you very much for being with us. I appreciate your time on this busy night.
Sure.
So let me ask you about that videotape, first of all, the one that reportedly prompted the administration to try to speed up its efforts on this exchange. Did you see it, and can you describe what you saw?
Well, I can't talk about the substance of the classified briefing, but I can say this. After this briefing, I'm confident that our military and the administration was right to take all the steps necessary to go in and get Bergdahl out of there. His health was clearly compromised. But, of course, that sacred duty that Representative Terry referred to in his tweet exists no matter the health or the condition of the soldier. When someone is taken as a prisoner of war, no matter the condition that they're in, we have long had an obligation to go get that prisoner and bring them home. And the chilling effect that it would have on our military, on recruitment for our military, if we started to condition that responsibility on the condition of the soldier would be absolutely catastrophic. So I do think that part of the decision here was educated by the condition of Bergdahl. But regardless of the condition, we should go to great lengths to bring people like Bo Bergdahl home.
In terms of what's been going on in Washington since the announcement this weekend that Sergeant Bergdahl had been rescued, I confess to being a little bit bewildered by the turn in politics. And you can see it in some of those individual members of Congress and candidates for Congress and the Senate. They started off feeling the way that I felt, which was that this is great news, that he's home. And there since has been a hard political turn there. Have to ask, sitting there with your colleagues and getting this classified briefing, do you feel like the people who are now so angry about Sergeant Bergdahl being home, about this deal to get him home, do they seem at all, I don't want to say appeased, but do they seem calmed by what they learned from the White House tonight?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that we are locked into an electoral environment. And, of course, what is so frustrating to Republicans is that President Obama's foreign policy has been a strength for a large part of his presidency. And much of their efforts, I think, today around Bergdahl and over the last year on Benghazi has been an attempt to try to turn what has been a strength into a weakness. And, of course, just flip this the other way. Think of what would have happened if Bergdahl had died in captivity, had Obama not gone to great lengths to rescue a soldier who was held as a POW. Do you really think that Republicans would have laid down without absolutely eviscerating the president? When it comes to Republicans' critique of Obama's foreign policy, he's in an absolute no-win position. If he had left Bergdahl to die, you would have seen the exact same critique, the exact same level of critique, at least, that he is receiving for having gone and rescued this guy.
General McChrystal, General Stanley McChrystal, who's, of course, the former commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan, today he gave an interview to Yahoo News in which he reinforced the military and American ethos that you leave no soldier behind on the battlefield, said it was the right thing to do, said any questions about Sergeant Bergdahl's conduct that led to his capture should be settled as a separate matter. I imagine that General McChrystal's words are going to have an impact on this political debate. But from your position on Capitol Hill and having seen the way this went today, you described this as an electoral environment in which this is being discussed. What do you think happens next here? Where do you think this is going?
Well, what happens next is that the information that we've been waiting for comes out. I mean, it's really stunning that people are making their own determinations on the circumstances of Bergdahl's departure when we haven't gotten any of the necessary information to try to make that determination, not the least of which is hearing from Bergdahl himself. But we heard reports, fairly loosely reported over the course of the last few days, for instance, that there were upwards of 8 or 9 soldiers that had died looking for Bergdahl, and Secretary Hagel came out today and said there's no evidence right now that any soldiers died on patrols looking for Bergdahl. And so what is going to happen in the next few days is that slowly the truth is going to creep out, and ultimately we're going to hear from Bergdahl himself. I don't know the exact circumstances of his departure, and the military doesn't either. But everybody needs to just chill out and stop rendering political decisions on this crisis and on this issue until we get the facts and hear from this guy from his own mouth.
Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Again, I know this is a busy night tonight in Washington. Thanks for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks. All right. We've got a lot ahead on the show. We've got a busy show tonight. We've got a story out of Michigan that you will not see anywhere else. And we've got some important news affecting the fight to control the United States Senate this year. And that is all ahead. Stay with us.